I've always believed that we can become a stronger province if we unite, because we all have one thing in common. We want good lives for ourselves, and we want good lives for our kids and our grandkids.
Hello everyone, welcome to Snow Goose News Station. My name is Janie and I'll be your host today. For today's show, we are pleased to have Ellis Ross, the BC Liberal Party leadership candidate and the founding chair of the Aboriginal Business and Investment Council, here to share with us his agenda. Hello, Mr. Ross. Before we start this interview, Mr. Ross, can you please introduce yourself to us?
I am Ellis Ross. I'm an Aboriginal from a small reserve on the west coast of British Columbia, where I still live today, with my wife, my two children with their families, and more importantly, my two grandchildren.
As most of us are aware, a revolutionary change is much needed for the BC provincial government. If you're elected, what are the changes you want to bring forward?
Well, I want to basically build back the economy. I want to actually British Columbians to be proud of our resource economy. But to do this, we've got to understand this is a global economy. We've got to reopen our trade offices in Africa. We've got to reopen our trade offices in Beijing. They shouldn't have been shut down in the first place. And we've got to create relationships with the United States government in terms of the cruise ship industry. So that's always been my number one goal.
Downtown Eastside has always been one of the top concerns for British Columbians, especially for the people who live around Chinatown and Indigenous people who suffered a lot from the rapid urbanization in Vancouver. So, in your opinion, what kind of policies could eventually make a change?
Well, this is where I come from. I'm an Aboriginal, so I understand addictions, I understand homelessness, I understand mental health. But ultimately, we've got to reach out to these people and treat them like the sons and daughters that they are. Some of them are mothers and fathers. But on the other side of the wall, we've also got to respect the safety of the people at large. And I've been down to Chinatown. My ancestors have a close history with the Chinese people that came to work in the canneries, came to work in the forestry, came to work on the railways. So I actually agree, as one part of the measure to actually protect Chinatown, it should be a World Heritage Site. Those are just some of the things that we should be looking out for that actually reflect the diverse province that British Columbia has become.
The systemic discrimination has been an issue in Canada for a long time. If you have the chance to make a difference, how would you approach it?
Well, this is an issue I've been battling for most of my life as an Aboriginal. So I understand what the South Asians went through. I understand what the Asians went through. Everybody that might have came from a different country has experienced racism in one form or another. The number one that we can do, get rid of the divisive politics. Stop blaming ethnic minorities for hiring a house cost, for example. Stop blaming ethnic minorities for COVID. Stop blaming them, period. That's divisive politics. Number two, we've got to do more education. Racism is based on ignorance. It's based on fear. How we get rid of that is we actually embrace each other's cultures and actually unite people. Don't divide people.
And people do talk about the increase in luxury tax, such as for luxury cars. Do you believe that this is a wise decision for the sake of increasing the overall public welfare?
Well, blaming the Asian community for rising house prices was wrong. That was racist to come out, especially in terms of our leadership in British Columbia. And this is how racism actually gets worse, is when you start blaming ethnic minorities. The luxury tax is only just one solution. Anybody that's a leader that's been looking at the housing crisis in Vancouver and around the world for the last 10 years knows there's a lot of different factors that go into it. A lot. So we've got to be looking at how to work with municipalities, for example. We've also got to address the housing affordability in terms of looking at how inflation and the cost of living has increased, and yet wages haven't. There's a lot of good people working a really good job, and yet they still can't afford a house, mainly because their wage hasn't kept up with the rising cost of living. I think about that as, that's just another government move. Taxes are not the answer. I mean, if we're going to look at it across what's happening in BC, for example, for the last 4 years, that's all we've seen. Rising taxes. In fact, coming up in this term, under the NDP leadership, they're actually looking at increasing more taxes. And at the same time, they're talking about which programs should they be cutting, specifically infrastructure projects. Now this is going to matter, because right now we're in a crisis in terms of highways being washed out. This is going to cost billions to cover off. And right now, with the deficit we're in, I don't know where they're going to get the money, because they've stifled the economy so much There's no revenues coming into the provincial government to help pay for some of this infrastructure that's badly needed in terms of the Coquihalla, Highway 1, Highway 7, the flooding of Merritt, the flooding of Abbotsford. This is politics that we've been experiencing for the last 5 years. It's not governance. It's not leadership.
And is there anything else you want to share with our fellow British Columbians today?
Yes, I've always believed in the true definition of reconciliation. And I speak of that in terms of the diverse province of BC. I don't believe in dividing people, whether you're talking about your gender or your race or where you come from. I don't believe in that. I've always believed that we can become a stronger province if we unite, because we all have one thing in common. We want good lives for ourselves, and we want good lives for our kids and our grandkids. And this is what I've always based my principles on.
Thank you for joining us. We are very honored to have you.